Okay, so a big thank you to everybody who's come along to our Astro Crystals presentation here. I think we're going to be around for about 2 hours or so, depending on how much we natter on, really. It's kind of a first for us, so we'll see how this goes. So there, if you have questions as we go through, if you'd like to type them into the chat box, and then towards the end or at convenient times, then Lisa's going to monitor that, and we'll answer as many as we possibly can at the end. So let me start to share my screen. So I'm hoping you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yep.
Nodding things, that's lovely. Yep. Okay. So this is a presentation here by me and Jackie Waller and Lisa Wallace. Just a few words about us before we go in to the presentation. Some of you will know us already. Some of you may not, but I'm someone who practices a Celtic wisdom tradition, have done over many years. It's based on scholarship and mythopoetic interpretation, but sounds bizarre, but actually works for me, and that's the main thing. I work with shamanic practices and native spiritual traditions of these islands. I've worked as a funeral celebrant. I'm a trained geomancer. I've read tarot for numerous years, more years than I care to mention. And I've been studying astrology on and off for about 35 years, but only in the last 5 or 6 years that I've started studying it really deeply and taking some professional courses. Lisa's a Reiki master and reflexologist, and she works as a space-holding, self-healing enabler therapist, and she uses hands-on energy work with shamanics, and is a brilliant silversmith artisan. She uses ancient techniques and tools and sarsen stones and granites and all sorts of things like that. And her practice is shaped by the knowledge and techniques passed down to her by her family members over her time, her time of growing up in both areas of her work. And she works with the moon phases, nature and the seasons for inspiration and guidance in all she does. And Jackie Waller is a Reiki master teacher, crystal healer, practitioner and therapist, NLP and life coach, and IEMT practitioner. And she works with energy in many ways, including crystals and natural elements, together with Western practices to help people gain a new perspective and create changes to enhance their lives. She loves being in nature and following the path of our ancestors through ceremonial working, stories, and history, knowing we have much to relearn and reawaken. So before we begin properly, I came across something someone was saying to me the other day that reminded me how important it is that all we do is for the highest good. So I've started this presentation with this dedication. May all our learning help us to cultivate insight and kindness towards ourselves and others, that we may serve wisely for the highest good of all beings, that we all may know peace and wellness. So crystals and astrology together, which is what we're going to talk about today. This is a quote that some of you may have come across in part. And it goes, true without falsehood, certain and most true. That which is above is the same as that which is below, and that which is below is the same as that which is above. For the performance of miracles of the one true, without falsehood, certain and most true. That which is above is the same as that which is below, and that which is below is the same as that which is above, for the performance of miracles of the one thing. That's Hermes Trismegistus from the Emerald Tablet, discovered in, I think, in Arabia. And it describes how everything that we do is related to everything else, in essence, which is why the stars and all we do are connected with crystals. It's how divination works with tarot and all the other forms of divination. It's how energy works. Everything we do affects everything else. So this is an ancient philosophy and is the background to Western Hermeticism, really. And that's the background to why we can talk about astrology working with crystals. So when we work with crystals and astrology together, it supercharges the energy of both the crystal and the planet it's associated with. Every crystal has an association with a certain planet. And by energizing both at the same time, we are bringing even more energy to all that we do with our crystals and with our astrology. It's a holistic approach. So it works with your birth, your natal chart. It works with transits, which is how the stars and the planets move around in the sky. And it works with the planetary associations and the power of the appropriate crystals. It can be a remedial measure using both crystals and astrology to refocus our minds. And it can help manifest what you desire. And if you do this at a regular basis, it will improve the quality of your life. So how do we go about this? How do we make this work together? Now, this magnificent diagram over here on the right-hand side is actually an illustration of how the ancients perceived the universe. Whilst we know that the earth goes around the sun, the ancients perceived that everything was revolving around the earth. And we still, from an earthbound position, perceive everything moving around us. And so the ancients drew up this, what's known as the Chaldean order of planets, with the earth in the center and moving through the four elements. And then in order of the speed of the planets as they appear to us, moving from the moon to Mercury, to Venus, to the sun, to Mars, to Jupiter and Saturn, and then outward into the fixed stars. And then the prima mobile, which they called, which is beyond, which is God, or all that is. And that's the basis of working with these ways. And in the tradition that I use, and with crystals these days, I only use, and we should only really be using, the 7 traditional planets. They're the visible planets. The others beyond Saturn were invisible to, and still are invisible to, the naked eye. So we're working with what we can see with our eyes. We use traditional sign rulerships. So we don't use Uranus, we don't use Pluto, we don't use Neptune as rulers of signs. And then we look for the correspondences between crystals and the 7 traditional planets to manifest what it is that we desire. Sounds pretty simple, and it is. So which planets rules which signs? This diagram here shows you the beautiful symmetry of ancient astrology, and how the new planets have kind of disrupted this beautiful symmetry. The ancients perceived the point of midsummer, which is this line here, at the beginning of Cancer, as the highest point and the beginning of all existence. So Cancer is the gateway into being and is ruled by the moon. So the moon is actually the gateway into our body. It's spirit moving into our body. And then they're followed by the sun in Leo, And then on either side of what's known as the two luminaries, the sun and moon are the two luminaries, both signs either side are ruled by Mercury, which is the fastest planet after the luminaries. And that rules Gemini in the day and Virgo at night, followed by Venus, ruling Taurus in the day and Libra at night, followed by Mars, which rules Aries in the day and Scorpio at night, followed by Jupiter, which rules Pisces in the day and Sagittarius at night. And then lastly, the two planets that rule the darkest signs in that they are either side of the winter solstice, Capricorn and Aquarius, are ruled by Saturn. So Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, the Sun rules just Leo, Venus and Taurus, Venus rules Taurus and Libra, and Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, and finally the Moon rules Cancer. So we ignore the three outer planets completely in what we're doing here. Quick overview of the qualities that these planets bring us. Saturn, the furthest planet out, the slowest moving planet that we can see. It brings us wisdom. It brings us the esoteric arts, longevity. It also brings us barriers, boundaries, structure, challenges. But through those challenges, it allows us to access these higher things. The next fastest after slow Saturn is still relatively slow Jupiter. Jupiter is expansive, wants to incorporate everything. And it brings us wealth and good fortune and wisdom, amongst other things as well. These are very simple explanations of what they can bring. But from that, you can see there's a big difference between Saturn's usefulness and Jupiter's usefulness in what we're looking for. Mars. Mars wants to assert itself. Mars is all about assertion. It can transmute into aggression should we overuse it. But Mars brings us strength, purpose, determination, and a desire for victory. The Sun, which represents a striving to be the highest self that we can be. It doesn't mean we are our sun, as many of us know. We often don't feel comfortable with our astrological sun sign. We not necessarily able to project what that is. So it's a striving to be. The sun can bring us promotion, success, health, and wealth. Venus, Aphrodite, brings us love, art, music, relationships, aesthetics, everything that's beautiful, that we find beautiful. Can also be possessive. Mercury. Mercury is a bit of a trickster, really. He's a dodgy one to try and grasp onto. It can be just about anything that he chooses to be. And if we use him well, he can bring us wealth. Commerce, he's vital for commerce, trade, business, the esoteric arts, and study, how we communicate, how we learn, how we think. And lastly, the moon, which is the fastest moving planet. And working with the moon can bring us a sense of safety. It brings us visions and allows us to grow. So the sources I'm going to use, or we're using here today, I've just used a couple. There's lots and lots that you can do. This chap, Biruni, that's his full name. I'm not even going to try to say that. And he's generally just reduced to Biruni. He was born in 973 CE in Uzbekistan, and he died in 1048 CE in Afghanistan. He wrote the Book of Instructions of the Elements of the Arts of Astrology, which is abbreviated to be called the Tafhim, And again, I'm not going to try and say what that says in Arabic there. It's one of the original sources of the associations, not just with crystals and stones and metals, but with incenses and plants and all sorts of things. So this is ancient wisdom we're talking about here, where the astrologers recognized that everything in life, everything in the universe was connected. And by working with one, we were working with all. And this is one of his quotes. The comprehension of the structure of the universe and of the nature of the form of the heavens and the earth and all that is between them, attained by rehearsing the information received, is extremely advantageous in the art of astrology. Which is a long way round from saying if we study astrology and we study the associations and what's related to the signs, then we will know what's happening in our lives and we can improve our lives and we can grow better at what it is we seek and strive to do. The other source I'm using for today is a chap called William Lilly. And he's one of the foremost medieval astrologers, late medieval astrologers. He was born on the 1st of May, 1602 in Leicestershire. So we have exact dates for him. He died on the 9th of June, 1681, and I haven't been able to find out exactly where he died. I suspect London, because he became very famous and was associated with working with royalty and lots of high patronage amongst the aristocracy. And he was the foremost English astrologer of the 17th century, highly respected, highly regarded. And he wrote the seminal work, Christian Astrology, in 1647, which is still available and published to this day. There are some interpretations out there which are easier to read, but if you're inclined to do so, you can wade through Christian astrology and you can find all sorts of nuggets. It's a huge book, broken down into sub-books as well. And it covers just about anything and everything you can possibly imagine regarding astrology, and is still used today by many astrologers. So if that's the background, let's talk a little bit about when we're working with crystals and astrology together, what we can do with them before we go on to talk about some of the individual crystals and the lists of crystals that they relate to. So talisman, the word comes from the Greek talisman, meaning consecrated or sacred object. An amulet comes from the Latin amuletum and refers more narrowly to objects with an apotropaic or protective function. So you can use a talisman for any magical work. You use an amulet specifically for protective work. And the key to astrological talismans and amulets is the timing of their creation. When you make them, they can be permanent or temporary. They can be a beautiful piece of jewelry. They can simply be dedicating and working with a crystal on your altar at specific times, or they can be temporary by drawing specific symbols on a piece of paper, for example, representing the planet, the sign, and magical sigils that represent the crystal or whatever it is you want to work with. Now, unless talismans and amulets are created in an astrologically auspicious time, as well as being ritually consecrated, they are nothing more than an item with astrological designs lacking any magical or spiritual charge. I think we do this instinctively. So when we are charging our crystals underneath a full moon, you're using astrology there because you're using the energy of the moon, which is full, with the sun in opposition to the moon, and are using that time to charge the crystals. If you're using a crystal or any other object to work astrologically, you need to be aware of what's happening in the heavens to create that magical charge or spiritual charge with it. The timing can be as simple or as complex as desired. So a full moon, a new moon, a dark moon. Yeah, the quarter moons, all have their own energies and their own purposes. Or if you're creating a talisman or an amulet that you want to keep for a very long time, then looking exactly at the heavens and the stars and where the rulers of the individual signs are and the individual planets creates an even stronger effect. So the more appropriate the timing and the more appropriate the ritual, the more effective the talisman or amulet. Poor timing, though, can result in unpredictable effects. They will work, the talisman and the amulet will work, but it might not be what you expect. So, for example, last year, when we were going through the pandemic, we had Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter all in Capricorn. Now, Jupiter should ameliorate the effects of Saturn in Capricorn, but Jupiter in Capricorn is afflicted, and Saturn is in its rulership, which meant that poor old Jupiter couldn't really do what it wanted to do and was really being bound by the effects of Saturn. So what happened then, Jupiter, in its desire to expand and bring everything into its own purposes, began to expand Saturn and Pluto, and amongst other things as well, we ended up with a pandemic. So that can give you an idea of what can happen when you do things at the wrong time. Jupiter worked, but it didn't work in the way that any of us really would have wanted. So we're now going to go on and talk about the individual planets and the stones that are associated with them. And so I'm going to hand over to Jackie now. It's all yours, Jackie.
Thank you, Chrissy. So if you want to put all of them on there for me so that it's got all the, that's it. So there are lots and lots of different crystals and stones associated with the different planets. We've just selected a few today. You've got a list here of different ones that we've selected for you. If you go and do your own research, you'll find lots of other ones. What you should also be aware of is quite often the crystals that were called certain names have changed over time. So some of the crystals, for example, sapphire, that we know as sapphire today, in the old medieval times would have probably been lapis lazuli or some other blue stone. So a lot of the stone names have changed. So the best way that I find to work with crystals is to work on your intuition and select what works for you and just work with them and notice what's right and what isn't right. So with Biruni, we've got litharge, we've got iron, we've got slag and hard stones. With Lilly, so this is coming forward in time, but it's still fairly old. We've got the dross of all metals. This is a time when iron would have been spouted and people were working with metals, blacksmiths are working. We've got sapphire, lapis lazuli, all black stones. So there would be all sorts of black stones, tourmaline, obsidian, ugly country stones, not polished, of an ashy or black color. So these would have been stones that would have been picked up from the ground or from walks and things like that. So not everybody had lots of money to go and buy crystals, and they weren't always available to everybody. And then up to modern times, we've got lead and onyx, hematite, azurite and blue sapphire. So real mix of colors and stones there. If I could have the next slide, please, Chrissy. So Biruni, we're looking at slag and the dross of all materials. So slag isn't a word that we use very much in our days. And when we do use it, it has all sorts of meanings and connotations. In these times, the slag would have been the substance that was taken from the top of the metal. Now, this substance was really important because it stopped the metal oxidizing. So whereas it was a byproduct, it was still of use and still a useful product. And it was then repurposed and used for all sorts of things. It was added to other metals. It was also used for roads. And in the Bronze Age, copper slag was used in making glass and jewelry. So whilst we think of things as useless, that's not always the case. And for me, this substance shows us a different way to be, a different perception that not all things that we discard are useless. And actually, it's not about wishing and wanting and acquiring things. Sometimes it's about working with what you have. And for me, the pandemic, certainly the first lockdown, really showed me that. It was all about that old-fashioned make, do, amend, and work with what you've got to hand, because people simply couldn't get other things. So it's about a different way of working, a different perception. And then if we go on to Lilly, so the stone associated with Lilly is sapphire. Sapphire comes in all colours except for red. Red sapphire is called ruby. It comes from a variety of places, India, Sri Lanka, Madagascar, Thailand, connected with the brow chakra, and it's a hard crystal. It can be, and often is, heat treated to enhance the colour, so not all colour is genuine. And it's often named, so some of the bigger pieces are given names, a bit like diamonds. So there's the Star of India, which is the largest uncut sapphire, and the Midnight Star, which is a black sapphire. It encourages wisdom and intuition, and it brings joy. I mean, just looking at it makes you feel joyful. It can lift depression. So again, that's linked to the joyfulness, helps lift the depression and soothe the emotions. It can also help to stimulate the throat and help us to speak and to say what we need to say. And it's connected with vitality. It can be worn as jewelry. It can be made into an elixir, and it can be used in meditation. It's particularly good if it's put on the third eye. And then if we have the next slide, come up to the modern day, and you see this is very different crystal to the one that we've just seen. So this is hematite. Hematite is an iron-based crystal and comes from India. We get some in the UK, Brazil, Chile, and New Zealand. The largest deposits have come through volcanic activity or weathering or metaphysical transformation. And you get it in colours of black, metallic grey, and silver. In olden times, it was called bloodstone. And that's because when you cut it, the blade then goes red. And if you cut it into thin slices, it appears red and translucent. It works with the root chakra, and it's great for grounding. So if you have someone who's feeling really spacey, give them a piece of hematite to sit and hold, and that will often get rid of that spacey feeling. You can also use it with, if you're doing treatments. I know we can't do that at the moment, but when we can, put it at the foot of the treatment bed or underneath the treatment bed at the end, and that will help to ground people. Also, if you're, so some people find when they meditate, they get really spacey and they have difficulty coming back to the space and time where they are, or focusing. If you put some at your feet, that will help you with your concentration. It encourages our survival instinct as well, so gives us that strength and will to survive, and bestows vitality and well-being. And it's often called a stone of the consciousness. I've given you some ways to work with it. You can also hold it or carry it around. put it in jewelry. And then if we can have the next slide.
So we can work with these stones, crystals, excuse me, when creating jewelry. So the jewelry can be used as indeed a talisman or an amulet. This particular ring, an onyx ring, was actually made for a young girl who was at a point in her life where she needed grounding. She didn't really have very much direction, so she needed to center herself, which works perfectly with all the properties of the onyx, and also it was about her continuing into her life again, so that worked. Now we worked together to create this as an amulet, and she's found it really useful. It was also, this one was charged underneath the new moon, so bringing on the properties of making plans for her future. And again, this is another onyx, and was actually made for a very similar situation.
So the next planet is Jupiter, and we've got a whole host of crystals here. Biruni, we have got Marsikite, we've got 2T, which is a zinc, tin, white lead, fine brass, diamonds, and all white and yellow stones. So a real mixture. But if you think about those times, those were probably substances that were available then. In Lilly, we've got tin, we've got amethyst, sapphire again. So that was obviously a popular stone. Emerald, hyacinth, topaz, crystals listed under the moon, which we'll come to, bosar, marble, and the freeform fine stones, so sandstones and limestones that we get in this country. And then up to the modern day, tin, pewter, yellow sapphire, yellow topaz, yellow apatite, and malachite. So if you think of the colours of those stones, all quite different colours. And then the ones that we've picked for you, so Biruni, we've picked diamond, and fine brass. So diamond is what is called the king of gemstones, and it's one of the hardest crystals, and quite often is used to drill other crystals. So you'll get diamond tip drills, which are then used to cut or drill other crystals because it's so hard. It comes from places like South Africa, South America, Brazil, Australia, and Russia. It's formed under really high temperatures and high pressures. And the colours are mostly yellowish. And again, it's one of those crystals that are quite often named. You get Hope diamonds. That was named after the owner of that particular diamond. It's a high vibration crystal, and it's associated with all chakras. It increases the effect of other crystals and brings clarity to the situation. So it helps remove that brain fog that we sometimes get. It brings abundance, and historically it was seen as a sign of wealth. So that's really not surprising. In medieval times, the people who would have had diamonds wouldn't have been the ordinary peasants in the field. They would have been the noble people. It was also seen in medieval times as a sign of strength and character. It's a really useful crystal to hold while meditating. You can also put it on your grids for focus of what you want to achieve. Fine brass, we don't often see brass or have things that are brass anymore. It used to be really popular. So brass is made from copper and zinc. Copper melts at a lower temperature to zinc. So what they do is they melt the copper and then they put pieces of zinc into it. And most fine brass has a higher proportion of copper to zinc. It's often used for astrology instruments, surveying, navigation. If you think of a ship's compass or instruments on a ship, they were often made of fine brass. It's good for skeletal problems and eliminating toxins. And then on to Lilly. So we've chosen amethyst for you here. So this is a really readily available crystal and is quite beautiful. It comes in different shades of violet and purple and lilac, and also slight red as well, you can see on some crystals. It's part of the quartz family and it's linked to the third eye. It's quite a hard crystal. The Greeks, the name comes from the Greek for non-drunk. So the Greeks wore it as amulets to protect them against drunkenness. And the Romans believed that it stopped you getting drunk. So they would make wine goblets out of it and drink out of them under the thought that it would stop them getting drunk. So I'm not sure that worked, but it gave them the excuse of drinking more. It's a really calming crystal, helps to quieten the mind, and really useful to hold while meditating. The chevron amethyst that you can get, which literally has chevron shapes in it and quite often has quite a bit of white, that's really good for pain relief. So you can either hold that for pain relief, put it to the site of the pain. It's really good for migraines and headaches. And again, you can rub that on the site of the pain if you've got a headache or a migraine. You can also meditate with it on your third eye. It helps businesses to prosper, and it's also good for stress relief. It comes from all sorts of areas, but Brazil, Madagascar, Mexico, Russia, Sri Lanka, and the USA. And then the modern one is malachite. So in this picture that you can see, you can't see an awful lot of malachite there. The malachite is the green parts that you can see. And normally you can identify malachite from the different greens, from light to dark. It's quite often got circles on it or lines. Comes from Australia, Zimbabwe, Arizona, Chile, and Republic of Congo. And the color, the green color, comes from the copper in it. It's linked to the heart chakra and it's a really strong heart healing crystal. Some people find that it's just too strong, and I've had people who won't hold it at all because it's just too strong. And I think also some people aren't ready to do that healing work on their heart. We tend to hold quite a lot of pain and old injuries in our heart, not just from current times, but old pain that we carry forward with us. It's really good for stimulating brain activity and for the nerves. Facilitates baby labor and helps with menstrual cramps. Protects from negativity, and it helps to maintain emotional balance. Enhances the solar plexus and stimulates the willpower. It can be worn. It works really well with other crystals that have copper in them, so azurite and turquoise. And you can also use it in your grids as well. You can carry it and put it under your pillow as well. So that would be really useful for people who perhaps don't want to work with it consciously, but do want to work with it. And for some people that would be a little bit gentler than actually making a conscious effort to work with it.
Okay, so this, so working with Jupiter, With this set, we've used the Amethyst. This set was created for a lady who was going into a new career. So obviously some good fortune and some wisdom there was pretty spot on. She also suffered with fatigue, which the Amethyst was really helpful for too. And we've had great results from this one. She wears these daily, won't take them off. And Amethyst again, this was created for an 18th birthday. So again, wisdom, good fortune. And also we've used the symbols of the moon for her feminine power, which she was finding that she couldn't really connect with, which I think is quite common at that age. So just to give her a boost as well. And brass. I love working with brass. It's just the sun coming in to illuminate with the Jupiter. Just it brings great warmth and healing protection, but also very good for monetary gain. So this particular one was made for someone who's setting out their own business and just needed really just a talisman there.
So then we move on to the planet of Mars and the crystals from the Biruni time. Magnetic iron, iron, copper, and Shenzna, which is a lentil-shaped stone. Lilly was iron, arsenic, anatomy, brimstone, orc, adamant, lodestone, bloodstone, jasper, many different coloured amethysts, touchstone, which are the fine grain dark shits or ballast, red lead or vermilion, glass. And if you think about glass in those times, it was very different from the glass that we have today. And then in modern times, we've got iron, copper, coral, and carnelian. And the Biruni one we've chosen is copper. I have to say, copper is one of my favourites to work with. Quite often it comes from the USA, and you can't, that colour is so distinctive. You get different patinas on it, and it does oxidize, and quite often will go green, or if you wear copper jewellery, it can make your skin go green. I have that with my copper bracelet. It's quite a soft crystal, and it's linked to the sacral chakra. It's a crystal, or a mineral, if you want to call it that, of luck. So if you think of the little rhyme, find a penny, pick it up, and all day you will have good luck, that would have been a copper penny. So people quite often want to buy copper and don't know where to find it. So you can use coinage. It's not, pure copper, but it has some copper in it. Copper is a really good energy conductor. So if you think about our electrical cables, they've got copper in because electricity travels through them freely. And if you've ever made any copper jewelry and heated it up, you'll know that it conducts heat really, really quickly. I've done that and burnt myself because literally you put the flame on it and the heat travels through it. It allows energy to flow freely. It helps with overexcitability, and it increases the energy when you're feeling tired. So it can give us a bit of a boost if you're feeling lethargic or really tired. It's also antibacterial and can be used to stabilize and balance blood flow. You can obviously wear copper. You can put it on your grids or actually make a grid out of it. You can also get copper water bottles. So I've started using copper water bottles, and they're antibacterial and have been used in the Indian culture for centuries. And the taste of the water from a copper bottle is completely different to how it would normally taste. There's lots of different ones on the market, but yeah, it's really interesting. If anyone who can see my screen, I'll hold it up, and that's my copper water bottle. And one of the reasons that I started using a copper water bottle is I kept breaking my glass bottles. So copper's much easier. If you drop it, it will dent, but it's not going to break like glass. Then if we go on to the Lilly crystals, we've chosen Bloodstone here. I really like Bloodstone, and I think it's an underrated crystal. So you can tell the colour of Bloodstone because it's quite often a really dark green with red flecks. Comes from China, Brazil, Australia, and USA, and it's linked to the heart chakra, and it's quite a hard crystal. It's really good for centering and grounding. It's also good for spiritual work and spiritual insights, and aids intuition and transcends ordinary understanding of things. Helps to stimulate the flow of the lymphatic fluids and the metabolic process. I find Bloodstone is excellent for cleansing your cards. So if you use tarot cards or any other sort of spiritual cards, I put a Bloodstone on them and it cleanses the energy. It works really, really well for that. It's really helpful also if you're doing spiritual work to have it with you, have it on your table or next to you, or even hold it while you're doing that work. And you can hold it whilst you're meditating as well. That's quite helpful to just give you a different perspective on things and a different viewpoint. And the modern day one is carnelian, another one of my favorites. So carnelian can be orange to really dark brown or to a reddy brown. It's a variety of Chalcedonian crystals, and it's linked to the root, the solar plexus, and the heart. It's really good for stabilizing energy in the home and helps creativity and cleanses negativity, and it's also helpful for cleansing negativity from other stones. Personally, I work with carnelian when I'm having a really tough time, and when it's in a situation where I just have to grit my teeth and get through it. So I can't run away from the situation, I can't change it, I just have to grit my teeth and get on with it. And I find it really helpful to work with then. And I tend to hold it at night or put it under my pillow, and I find it a real comfort to hold at night and go to sleep with it. It gives you strength to overcome things and courage and determination. I think courage isn't a word that we use very often, and I think it takes courage to get through situations that you can't change, to just stay the course and not run away or to blame other people. It's also good for muscle strain, and I've worked with horses and people using it almost as a rubbing stone to help with muscle strain and tired muscles. So if there's any runners out there or people that work out quite a lot, this is a really good crystal to work with, to use in that way. Also stabilizes the aura. You can also use it as an elixir to help with the muscles as well, or you can wear it as jewelry. So you could wear it especially if you're having a tough time, use it as a worry stone. So in your jewelry.
Okay, so a copper bangle, traditionally used for the relief of arthritis. And this is actually what this one was made for. And also we have, as we're working with Mars, and we have the sign of the ram there, Capricorn, which is ruled by Mars. So this made this a little bit more powerful. And this is, again, is worn, as Jackie said, the properties of the copper worn against the skin are quite powerful, and it's easy to see because of the green that it causes. But that means it's working. So again, this one is just used all the time. Here we've used Larimar, which isn't really connected with Mars, but we've used the copper to help us bring out the properties of the Larimar. So as Jackie was saying, copper is a conductor, but it also enhances the energies of the stone that you're working with. So it's a win-win really, and it looks beautiful. So the Larimar is from the Dominican Republic. Only comes from there, and it's a very special stone and it's very powerful for being uplifting and dispelling fear. So to marry it with the copper really gave it a zing, and it's lush.
And then we move on to the sun and the Biruni, and again, notice the colors on the different crystals. So the reddish orange zircon, lapis lazuli, yellow sulfur, orpiment, which is your bright yellow mineral, marble, and gold. So all the colors there that you would associate with the sun. And then lily is gold, hyacinth, which is a semi-precious stone, chrysolite, adamant, carbuncle, I love that name, and the Amethyst stone or eagle stone. Modern ones, gold, ruby, red spinel, and rutilated quartz. So lapis lazuli. It varies in colour from very pale blue to a deep blue. Quite often you'll get white flecks in it, but you normally get the gold that you can see in this specimen here, and that gold that you can see is pyrite. It's made up of a selection of different minerals. So the white is normally the calcite, the gold you can see is the pyrite, and lazurite has also got it in. It's brilliant for working with the third eye, and it's really sensitive to strong pressures and high temperatures. So not one to have in really, really hot baths. Could use it in the summer in cool baths, but not in the hot ones. In the Middle Ages, they used the pigment from it. So they ground it down, and from the pigment, they used that as an ultramarine for painting their pictures. So, you know, the pictures that you would see of angels and that sort of like halo effect that you would get when they looked up to the clouds. That's how they use that. They used lapis to make that. The Egyptians used it in their tombs and to decorate their death masks. It's a stone of friendship, and it brings wisdom and honesty and inner truth. And for me, whenever I look at this stone, I always think it's a really regal stone. So it's quite often used by kings and pharaohs and royalty. It helps us to accept the truth, but it also helps us with spiritual development, especially if you place it on the third eye. It also helps with the throat chakra, and quite often people don't think about using it with the throat chakra. I find if you combine it with other crystals, it's really quite a powerful crystal to help with the throat. You can hold it, wear it in jewelry. It's really good in meditation, and to meditate with it on the third eye is really something else. And then if we move on to Lilly, so we've got gold and carbuncle. So gold generally comes from USA. Color obviously is yellow, although it has different yellowy tinges, and is connected with the heart chakra. And as you'd expect, when you think about gold, you think about wealth and abundance, vitality, mental balance. It also helps with the ego, and it helps with anger and hormone balance, and it brings you connection to the universe. Obviously, you can wear it in jewelry. You can put it in your grids. You can use it for meditation as well. And then carbuncle. So carbuncle, that's such an old-fashioned name, isn't it? But doesn't it sound great? So it's a red garnet. So it's an old-fashioned name for red garnet. They come from Russia and India and the United States. And the name carbuncle was used in the Middle Ages, so it's not something that we often use now. I think we should bring it back. I think I'm just going to start using it in everything. It's said to glow in the dark and illuminate the soul. And it was often put on warrior shields and on the hilts of their swords. And the thinking behind it was that the exterior, quite often of a natural garnet, is quite rough, but the exterior is beautiful, and that was thought to represent the trials and tribulations and the spiritual journey that the warrior would go through in order to get to that center, to get to that beautiful prize in center. It's a stone of crisis, and it's always been in fashion when there's been change in worldview and world crisis. So it's really popular in the First World War and the Second World War. And it'll be interesting to see if it now becomes popular as a result of the pandemic. But it helps people cope with the everyday problems, dissolves behavioral patterns that don't serve us. It's really good in crystal grids, and it's really good to enhance other crystals. So if you place it with other crystals, it'll amplify their energy and enhance it. So like I say, in crystal grids, it'll also be really useful to have in jewelry, but with other crystals. And then ruby. So ruby was a sign of affection. Quite often rubies, natural rubies, have like a greasy element to them and don't look very pretty at all. It's linked with the heart chakra, and is good for both the physical and the spiritual heart. I find ruby really, really powerful to meditate with. So if you put it on your third eye and meditate, it's just amazing. Just takes you to all sorts of different places. It's obviously linked with affection and passion and power. And again, it was used by royalty. So quite often they had ruby in their jewelry, and it was seen as a sign of wealth and status. Yeah.
Okay, so gold, the sun, kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? Especially, I think the photo of this amulet was particularly just looks like the sun. This one was made for a lady at a very big crossroads in her life. She needed some inspiration going off in a completely different direction. So the gold was used for that. We've used the moon again for the feminine power for her, and on the reverse, the sign, the Arwen sign. This is used for inspiration again. It's used used by the Druids now, but her father is Welsh, and his grandfather always had this sign on a ring. So to her, that there was the family connection as well, but it serves her for inspiration. And again, we've just enhanced these silver rings with a pip of gold. This gold was smelted into the pip that you see, and this was done, we'll be talking about this later as well, this was done under a new moon, again for inspiration and plans for wealth. And again, we've used the gold pips there. This is a rutilated quartz, so connected with the sun too. This is one of my favourite pieces, and I had a hard time giving it up. But this one was for a lady who was listening to her spirit guides and needing to go into a different direction. So this just helps her with really direction and just dispelling, just to clear the noise, really, dispel the noise and see forward.
And then Venus. So Biruni, Magnusa, Antonomy, silver and brass, gold and jewels set in it, pearls, emeralds and shells. Lily, copper, brass, all Leightonware. Brass is also listed under Mars. Sky-coloured sapphire, white and red coral. Marcasite, which is also listed under Mercury. Alabaster, lapis lazuli, because it expels melancholy, and also listed under Saturn. The beryl family, so the crystals that come within that categorization. Chrysolite, which is also listed in the sun. And then the modern day ones are gold, ruby, red spinel, rutilated quartz. And we've chosen pearl. So pearl comes from all sorts of places. It currently comes from Japan and China. The Japanese pearls are considered to be better quality than the Chinese one. Persian Gulf, Australia, Central and Northern America, and Australia. It's generally white or cream with a luster, and it's linked to the sacral chakra. Because of the way that pearls are formed, so pearls are formed within an oyster or most molasses, that they put an irritant in, and then what it does is it recognizes that there's that foreign body that's been put in, and it then encases it and separates it from itself, and it keeps encasing it, and that then grows the shell of the pearl, but it grows almost in like a spiral way. So although pearls themselves aren't particularly hard, they're really, really difficult to crush because of the way that they're formed. So pearls are all about sincerity, truth, faith, charity. It helps us to focus our attention and brings out personal integrity. It helps to provide reflection of the self and reflects how others see us. It also inhibits boisterous behavior and brings wisdom. It helps with fertility and childbirth, and it's also good for emotional control. Uses, well, just wear them. They're not as fashionable as they used to be, but they are coming back into fashion, and there's lots of different freshwater and seawater pearls with different names and different qualities. Some of them are dyed to give them different colors. So they are back in fashion again. Not so much the twin set and pearls, but worn in a different way. And then the Lilly ones, so beryl and alabaster. So the beryl family, there's quite a lot of different crystals within that name or within that group or family. The blue ones are called aquamarine and the green ones emerald. The blue aquamarine works with the throat chakra, and I found that to be really, really powerful. So for me, I wanted a bracelet that I could wear to help me with public speaking, to help me with my markets. So I chose aquamarine and lapis lazuli, and the combination of the two was so powerful and has been a massive help. And traditionally for the throat chakra, people would think about blue lace agate. I found this combination much more powerful than blue lace agate, and also much more beautiful. So there's less of the blue lace agate about at the moment, and the combination of the two crystals together I found to be really, really powerful. It helps to bring sincerity and truth. Emerald is really good for the eyes and the bones and the teeth, and it also has antiseptic properties. And yeah, it's best worn. So best way to have emerald or aquamarine is just to wear it and actually see the beauty of it, but also to feel it on your skin as well. Alabaster, again, it's not a word that we use very often. Comes from Germany, England, France, Italy, and the USA, and it's a really, really soft crystal. Helps us unlock the secrets of the pyramids when used in meditation, and it aids forgiveness, helps with mental clarity and eases anxiety. So any of the white crystals are really good for worry and anxiety. Quite often children are drawn to the really white crystals. They're just drawn to that color. And again, it's really useful in meditations. You could also use it in grids. Be careful working with it with other crystals because it is so soft. So if you worked with it with a hard crystal, then you may damage it or actually change the shape of it. And then rose quartz, everyone knows rose quartz. So it's part of the quartz family. Rose quartz is all about love. Sources, Madagascar. The Madagascan rose quartz is absolutely stunning. It's got a real depth to it and like an opalescence to it. Brazil, Sri Lanka, USA, and India. And it ranges from colours of really, really pale pink to the really deep pink, linked to the heart chakra. And it's a stone of love. When I say love, people instantly think about relationships. But actually, for me, it's a really strong self-healing crystal. I've worked with it quite a lot, and it's one of those crystals that I really underestimated, but it kind of gets under your skin, and it's really strong in a gentle way. Just, it reminds me a bit of a mother who must be obeyed. So she doesn't shout and she's not aggressive, but when she gives you that look, you know that you've got to do what she tells you to do. And rose quartz is like that. The longer you work with it, the stronger it gets. And it really helps you to think about taking care of yourself and to love yourself. It's great with stress and tension and anxiety and worry. It's great to just hold, have it near you, have it in the bedroom, have it in places where you want to create harmony. You can have it outside. The weather won't hurt it or affect it. It's really good for fertility as well. I've worked quite a lot in making jewelry for people who wanted to work with fertility, and also heart healing. So again, those wounds that we carry with us helps us to just gently unpick them in a really soft and gentle way, much more gentle than malachite. So it's much softer, but it also creeps up on us and does that work when we're not noticing.
Okay, so this, we've used brass on this silver ring. This was given to a wife from her husband, who wanted to use, initially wanted to use a birthstone. She was a Librian, but really wasn't a very sparkly, spangly lady, dainty lady. So he wanted something for her birth sign. So we used the brass there, obviously for Venus, and Libra is ruled by Venus. Also just given as a love token as well. This one was from a mother. So using the rose quartz, again, as Jack said, you know, it's just unconditional love. And she wanted just to, this was another 18th birthday gift, amulet. She just wanted her to carry some of her mother's love with her.
And then on to Mercury. So our Biruni, we've got amber, all yellow and green stones, turquoise. If you see real turquoise, it is quite a yellowy, greenish tinge colour, not like the turquoise that we know and see. Coral, all coins struck with a name and number. And then Lilly, Quicksilver, also known as Mercury. That's another fabulous name, isn't it? Quicksilver. The milestones, presumably these are the stones used beside the roads as markers for distance and travel. Marasite or fire flint, agates, topaz, vitriol, which is a sulfate of metals such as copper, zinc, iron and cobalt, all stones of diverse colour. Modern ones are silver, amber, blue topaz, citrine, moldavite, peridot, rhodochrosite, smoky quartz, hawkeye, which is a form of tiger's eye, emerald and sphalerite. Mercury, we've chosen amber. So amber has been used for centuries by people for healing. It's a form of tree resin, comes quite often from the Baltic coast. We do get some amber here that washes up on the beaches. At Whitby, you can get amber when there's been a really big storm. Sometimes it will wash up on the beach, and if you're really, really lucky, you'll find it. If you're like me, you'll just find agates and other things like that. It absorbs negative energy and is quite often used as an amulet. It also helps with things that have happened in our past, helps us to release those. and let go of those things so that they don't continue to affect us going forward. Brings stability to life, motivates and drives us forward and stimulates the intellect. It's also antibacterial, so it was used in medieval times for that purpose. And then mercury. Quicksilver is the old-fashioned name for mercury, and it's poisonous. So all of us with mercury fill-ins, some people have had them taken out, haven't they? But it's used in prehistoric times. It was used in jewelry and amulets. It encourages us to have a sunny nature and be self-confident, but also flexible. It was used in barometers and thermostats and in some fluorescent lights. It's good for the stomach and spleen, the liver and the gallbladder, and helps the joints, but when there's a buildup of cartilage. It's also connected to divination and scrying, and it's associated with death and mystery and transformation, and that's probably because it's toxic and poisonous and caused lots of death, and people didn't understand why, but that could just be me saying that. It's also considered to be lucky. Citrine. So citrine is a wonderful sunshine stone. It's linked to the solar plexus, and it's also called a money stone and is linked to abundance and creativity and wealth. Quite often, citrine is heat treated so that you get this real yellowy colour. Natural citrine is quite a dull yellow, and has a different energy. So the energy of the natural citrine is very calming and very strong, but the heat treated citrine is just seems to be much higher. There's nothing wrong with the heat treated, but it just seems to be a faster energy. It's good for relationships and self-esteem, so it helps us to strengthen our own sense of self and self-confidence. It's really good for an amulet, and it's really good for abundance. So it used to be called the merchant stone, and people would have it in their purse or pocket or pouch where they kept their money. It's still good for that, and it's good to put a piece in your purse or wherever you keep your money, or if you have a cash box, if you're a business, or if you work on the internet, put a piece by your computer so that money flows. I also find it really good for lifting depression. So I've worked with it quite a lot for that, and it just brings some sunshine into your life. It's really good to work with when we have the dark months of the winter, because it's so sparkly and just brings that light in and reminds you that the dark winter won't last forever. And I think that's why, certainly for me, it helps with depression, because it reminds me that there is that light at the end of the tunnel, and whatever I'm going through won't last forever. It's also good for balancing as well. And Mercury brings wealth. It's good for study. Oh, Lisa, this is yours. Sorry, I got carried away.
I'll just be quiet at the corner. These two amulets were actually commissioned by a young lady who was in a fairly new relationship. They were just moving in together. So we've kind of used the turquoise for the emotional balance, and yeah, emotional balance, and also communication with the colour, and the texturing on the silver has been done over the sarsen stone that they're on at the moment. So they've taken on the properties from the sarsen as well, which has been known forever for grounding and unconditional love. So marrying all those things together, hope they work. This one was for a lady who was embarking on some new studies, and just felt that she needed some self-esteem. So you know, citrine is brilliant for that, just to open out that and you know, eventually bring her success. Another amulet for this was for a husband who won't wear jewelry, so he actually carries this in his purse, in his wallet. So actually working with Mercury, and it's used in the wallet with the wealth side, works very well. But this was also given as an anniversary present, so all about relationships and balance too. And again, was textured over the sarsen stone, bringing all those, marrying all those in together.
And then we move on to the moon. So Biruni, Nebiton glass, white stones, emerald, moonstone, silver and things manufactured of silver, Lilly silver, also listed under Jupiter, selenite, moonstone, all soft stones, and also many of the crystals listed under Jupiter. And the modern ones are pearl, moonstone, moldavite, aventurine, calcite, dipsode, and bursite. So we've chosen moonstone. This is another one of my favorites. So moonstone, it comes in many colors. So you get white, you get the rainbow moonstones, which is the one that gives you the flashes of different colors within it, and green moonstone, and also dark moonstone. So lots of different variety of colors. Often comes from India, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, and the USA. It's part of the feldspar family and is about wisdom and new beginnings. It's also really useful for fertility and childbirth and balancing the female hormones. And I find if men work with it, it helps to balance their male hormones with their female hormones, not to make them more feminine, but to allow them to be more balanced in their cells, and also to have a different perspective on situations and also on problem solving, to have more of that female energy within the problem solving. It helps us to recognize the changing cycles, and it's linked, obviously linked to the moon. It's called moonstone. It's a stone of hope and wishing, and helps us to tap into our intuition. And it's useful when it's carried or worn. It promotes growth and releases tension. It's also really good for meditation. And what's really useful is to meditate with a white moonstone or a rainbow moonstone and a dark moonstone, because then that brings in the element of balance. And the dark moonstone is all about getting in touch with that and uncovering that deeper side of ourselves. I find that really useful for older women to just get in touch with their self and to come into their own power and to stand in that power, but also to have that realization of who they are and that it's okay to be who they are, and they're not now being someone's mother or someone's husband or someone's daughter. They can actually be themselves. But to meditate with the two of them is really, really powerful. I also have a moonstone necklace that's got an open back, and I use it as a worry stone. So when I'm anxious, I hold it and I rub the back of it just like a worry stone, and I find it really, really calming. You can use it like that. You can also use it in grids as well to bring about new beginnings. So it'd be really useful to work with the new moon and some moonstone. That would fit perfectly. And then on to selenite. So selenite's been one of my favorite crystals since I first started doing crystal courses and working with crystals in a serious way. It's linked to the moon. Selene is the goddess of the moon. It works with the crown and the third eye chakra, and it comes from places such as Morocco and Mexico and Canada. It's a really, really soft crystal. So it's so soft that you can scratch it with your nail. That makes it really useful because it's so soft, it's really easy to damage. So if you have points and bowls and things like that, and you knock them and you get a chip in them, you can use a nail file to even that out. If you've got crystal points that you use and you've knocked the top off, which I often do with my crystals accidentally, you can then file it back into a point as well. And it just comes back really well. And it's fabulous for meditation. So again, it aids fertility and helps with free radicals and cancer. It's really good for spinal problems. So you can take a crystal wand and take it down the back to help with the spine, or you can put really thin pieces of selenite under the bed, under the actual sheets, and sleep on them, and then take them out each day, and that helps with the spine as well. And it's amazing for combing the aura. So if you have a crystal wand and you use that at the end of a treatment to just comb the aura, it just feels delicious. It's just amazing. It's also great for getting rid of negativity. So if you work somewhere and you take on everybody's crap and all their negative vibes, come home and sit with a crystal ball. Or if you've got a tea light, you can light it, or a lamp, have it by your bed. And it just helps release all of that negativity as well. Really calming. And crystal bowls and things like that made out of it are fabulous for cleansing your jewelry. So if you have either a flat piece of selenite or a piece that you can put something on, or a selenite bowl, you can put your jewelry in it, and it just makes it feel amazing to put it back on. It's just fabulous. It's also great for gridding your house to stop negativity or to cleanse a house. So if you're moving, if you just, perhaps there's been an argument in the house and you just feel that you need to cleanse that energy. So you can do that with things like sage, but you can also do that by putting selenite on the 4 compass points. So you can either do that with actually looking up the compass points for the room, or just designating north, south, east and west, and putting a piece of selenite in each room. The longer you leave it there, the better. I've got my house gridded. I'm a end terrace, so on the wall between me and my neighbours, I have lots and lots of selenite to stop all that negativity coming through. Makes a massive difference. And then silver. So silver quite often comes from Mexico. It's linked to the heart, the throat, the brow, and the crown. So all of the high vibration chakras. It's good for emotional balance, purity, linking to the goddess. Again, it helps negativity. And it also, the energy of it enhances other crystals. So it works well as jewelry with other crystals, and it allows that crystal to actually shine, and for you to then see the best in that crystal, or to get the most from it. It can also be used as a mirror to the soul, helps with patience and perseverance, and provides a steadying influence, like I say, when combined with jewelry. It can also be used as an aid to detoxification, and vision, clarity, awareness, focus. So I think it's quite underestimated, because I think people think that silver jewelry is quite cheap and less important than gold. I think that the fact that it connects with the moon and enhances the crystals makes it something really powerful, and really powerful to work with.
Okay, so this piece is an extremely powerful piece. So we've used some there's lots of the moon here. So obviously there's a moonstone and the silver for the moon. So the moonstone really, for what this was going to be used for, traveling into spiritual realms, and the moonstone is a great amplifier for that, to assist you. Also, you know, working with the moon to help with vision, and again has been hand beaten over Saturn to incorporate some of that magic. This is just a very lovely, powerful piece. But using the silver with the moonstone does make these pieces really sing. Just a simple silver moon. These I make quite a few of these for people, and they like to have them made to represent when the moon on the date they were born, so waxing or waning. Some people like to have them, if they're born waxing, as a waxing moon to wear, to give them extra power. Some people like to wear the opposite, so a waning, to help them in their weakest part of the moon cycle for them. It's often thought that, you know, the opposite moon phase to the one that you were born in is a difficult time for you when the moon is in that phase. So these are quite useful for that too. This piece was made for strength, really, and growth and vision. It was for someone that had some very major health issues and really needed to focus on balance. We've used the rune sign here for journeying, the new travel. So, you know, he needed to go off into a new direction, and that was enhanced with the silver there and the moon. And just lovely silver rings and silver stuff. Obviously, I love silver. This one is a moon pebble. Every new moon and full moon, I work as closely as I can to the rise of the moon. So sometimes it means getting up really, really early in the morning. These are smelted And so they will be just a piece of wire. They're smelted until they form a pebble. But my window in the kitchen, where I perform this magic, is directly under the moon as it rises. So when they're smelted under the full or the new moon, they take on those properties, and they're really quite powerful. Sometimes I'll further texture them over the sarsen to take those properties on as well. They can be worn, enhanced with other bits. Here we have a star or another crystal, and they can just be held or carried in the purse, in the pocket. And there's a picture of some we made earlier. These ones were made under the last full moon, which was in Virgo. And Chrissy, can you tell us something about that? I think that's your department.
Can I just say what a beautiful selenite bowl they're in?
It's lovely selenite. I can't remember where I bought that. Obviously they are in the selenite. I've put them in the selenite bowl as well, with the connection to the moon, so they can just carry on with their lovely powers.
Okay, thanks, ladies. Yeah, let's talk about this. So we've kind of rattled through an awful lot here already, and we've we've focused on the qualities of the crystals without going into too much depth about their connections with all the astrological planets and signs, but I hope that's fairly obvious. With this one, I drew up the chart for the full moon in Virgo, which was, a week or so ago. Last weekend, actually, I think it was. Just to demonstrate what's going on when we're working really closely with the planets and so on, because there's more than just the full moon going on. This is quite small, and I apologize, the chart's quite small. These are absolutely beautiful pebbles. And Lisa's said, or her interpretation was, it was good for increasing, no, this is me. It's good for increasing solitary, personal, spiritual connection through service and meticulous, detailed research. So you may say, blimey, that's very specific. How do I come to that? So I'll try and explain for how, when we're working really closely with the astrology, you can really work to create something that's really, really specific about what you're aiming for. So it's good for increasing solitary, personal, spiritual connection. We have the sun and the moon opposite each other. The sun is in Pisces here, and it's in the 12th house. The 12th house is about isolation, being on our own, which means we're working with energies that we need to work within ourselves. This isn't a community thing. This isn't where you want to go out and work with everybody else. These stones, as they were created at this point in time and dedicated at this point in time, will be about solitary personal use. Spiritual, because we have moon opposite the sun in Pisces, which is about expansion of our own spiritual values, connecting with the collective, but on our own. It's through service and meticulously detailed research, because the moon is in Virgo. The Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is about detail, thinking things through, investigating things, coming to understand what's going on, especially in Virgo, where we need to know all the details. How does this work? Why does this work? Where does this work? And using that detailed research to enhance the spiritual journey that you're on. It's in the 6th house, which is the house of service as well. So this is about service to the community, but through our own individual work, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So not only is it a moon pebble because it's silver associated with the moon. If it was made on a Monday, it would be even better, but the full moon didn't fall on a Monday. Sometimes the astrology doesn't cooperate with exactly what we're trying to do. So sometimes we have to adjust a little bit or be patient. Sometimes you have to say, well, I really, really want this to be as powerful as it can be because I want A, B, and C. And then we have to wait. If you want something that's really powerful, to say, okay, let's wait until the full moon is in Sagittarius. If you want to go journeying, if you want to go traveling physically in the world, let's have a full moon in Sagittarius, preferably in the 9th house, the house of travel, and so on. But we can see what's also happening here well, I can see what's happening here is you have Mercury, which is the rule of the moon in Virgo, is conjunct exactly the same place in the sky within 3 degrees of Jupiter, which rules the sun. So they're working together. They're working in harmony together at exactly the same time as you're creating that full moon stone. The 2 rulers of the sun and the moon are together working in harmony. So it's a really, really strong positive side to it. The only downside, unless you're quite happy to work within yourself and on your own, is it's in the 12th house. Something to be aware of when you're working with these things is looking at where the house falls at the exact time that you're doing the work on it. So that's a very quick overview of how the astrology can help you create something that's really, really powerful and really, really even more useful than just the stones or just the astrology. Combining the 2 together creates something immensely powerful. So we've come to the end of our presentation. I want to thank everybody who's come along. There's time. We've got about 15 minutes left, I think. So if anybody would like to ask a question, I'm going to allow you to unmute by finding the right box. So you can all unmute if you want to unmute and ask questions or far away in the chat box. Lisa, have we had any questions in the chat box so far?
Only from Jonathan and Sarah, who are just asking if Jack can source the goods.
Yep.
I think they need
can.
a dealer, Jack. They need a dealer.
I can source crystals. Yep, no problem at all. If you have a look at my Facebook page, My Crystal Jack, I do lives on there, or you can direct message me from Facebook or just email me and let me know what you want, and then I can send you pictures. Yeah, happy to help source crystals. And if I haven't got them, then I can signpost you to where you can buy them from reputable sources. I think that's important to know where they come from.
Angelica, you just raised your hand.
Yeah, yeah, I was wondering because at the beginning it was said that the talismans and the amulets, they need to be made at a certain time and with certain rituals and things like that. So how is that with just when you have just the crystals? Do you have to do the same with those as well, or do they not? Or, and if you don't sort of activate them, and do they not do anything, or how does that work?
If you want to activate your crystal in line with the astrology, then you choose a time, you pick a time to do it. If you're just working with the crystal on its own and you're not consciously working with the astrology, and the crystals will work exactly as Jack has described to you. You're empowering the crystals even more when you work alongside the astrology of the moment. Mm-hmm. And you can make that as elaborate or as simple as you want. So if you want to go the whole hog, then you would light specific incense. So let's say you wanted to create a Jupiter talisman. They tend to be very popular. People like Jupiter because it's expansive and happy and jolly and brings wealth and prosperity and so on. So you would then create a sacred space. You would light an incense that was sacred to Jupiter, which is detailed in ancient books, like a book called the Picatrix, and various other ancient books, and that they actually have sacred hymns to the planets. So if you want to go the whole hog, You can actually make a prayer, a sacred ancient prayer, an Orphic hymn, as they were called, to the planet in question, as you dedicate the crystal to whatever purpose you want. Now, that crystal then will hold that power. It doesn't have to be in a piece of jewelry. If you, to create the amulet, you just need that crystal and that purpose. By making it with a piece of jewelry, it's enabling you to carry it around with you and hold that energy in any way you want. It kind of increases the purpose of it by creating something, but it can be temporary. You can do that with a piece of crystal and then cleanse it when you want to use it for something else. You don't have to continue to use that crystal for that same thing. So it's very flexible. And it's entirely up to you how much work you actually want to put into to doing that. And of course, unless you're an astrologer, you probably need an astrologer to tell you when the best time is, because it's not just the sun and the moon that's involved in all of this. There's all the other planets as well.
Is there any books that you could maybe recommend that could sort of highlight some of those?
Well, the best books are really translations of the Picatrix, which is where all the modern day uses of ancient astrological magic come from, and they give you lots and lots and lots of details. I'm trying to think of the name of the person whose translation I've got, and for the life of me it won't come to me. But I'll find out, and I'll send a message out. When this, I'll send a copy of the presentation to everybody, and I'll put details of some of these other books and so forth, if you're interested in them. They're quite dense. They're not easy reads because they were written, medieval times and before. So, and different translations sometimes translate them differently. So you have to work through some of that as well. But they're if you're interested, they're really worth reading, which I am interested in, obviously. So
yeah, that would be quite good.
Yeah. So I'll add that to so when I mail out the presentation, I'll add those details for it if you'd like. So everybody can have a look and then study some more if you want, because we really just have scratched the surface of this whole thing. It really is the most simple of it may not seem it sometimes, it's the most simple of introductions to the whole process of working with astrology and these stones and creating amulets and talismans, or just working with those crystals in line with the stars and the heavens. Does that help?
Yeah, that's really great. There's
Okay.
one general question. Is there, because to clean, I was wondering, because to sort of, I was thinking of all my silver, because I prefer the silver jewelry that I have, but I really don't like to use all this chemical stuff, the silver cleaner or whatever you can get. Is there a natural, something natural that is really good for cleaning silver?
It depends how precious it is to you, and if it depends on the surface. If it's highly polished and you want to keep it like that, I'm afraid that is kind of all you can use.
Okay.
But really just soap, hand soap, and a stiff brush, even a scourer. If it's got a texture on it, the green scourer that you can use in the kitchen. That will bring it up lovely. But silver just likes to be worn. You will get a patina on it.
Yeah, yeah. But you can't wear everything all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The name's escaping me. Citric acid. That you would use in cooking.
Like lemons, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can, if you use that with warm water, it will take your silver right back to very dull but very white if you leave it in warm water, and then you can polish that up.
Oh, right. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you.
It's food grade citric acid.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any more questions?
I think we've bamboozled everybody.
I'm sure that's not the case. I hope not. Well, all I can say to everybody is thank you ever so much. There's our contact details. Jackie's just given hers, but they'll be on the presentation anyway if you want to get in touch. If it's about the astrology side, working with the astrological connections to the stones, then it's me to talk to. Jackie is the crystal expert, and Lisa is the wonderful silversmith and jeweler that can create the amulets and so on for you. Well, just last thing before we go, I just want to check chat again. So I've had people asking for a bibliography. They're not just one book, they want more than one book. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be holding a Zoom get together on Thursday evening at 7, between 7 and 9ish, on the new moon that's coming up in Pisces on Saturday morning. So we'll do a dive into Pisces, the Pisces new moon on Thursday if you're interested. There's no details out there yet. I'll get it up on Facebook so that you can see the details there. For about 2 hours, should be fun to get together. I hope it doesn't get too dry. But I hope we can explore all of the nuances if you allow 2 hours to go through it and look at how it affects each individual rising sign or sun sign as well. So you can relate it to your own chart, because that makes a difference in terms of how it manifests in your life. So we'll do a deep dive into the Pisces new moon and how it affects each of the 12 signs of the zodiac in terms of sun sign and rising sign. That's my little bit of plugging.
Was it in the morning or evening?
7 in the evening, Angelica.
Oh, good. Oh,
yeah,
good.
7 till 9 in the evening.
Yeah,
I'm not up at 7 in the morning.
You can't get Chrissy up that early.
No, they've tried numerous times.
We still keep trying and it doesn't work.
No. So if that's the case, I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody. I'll stop the recording, I hope.